I used to think that a wedding was the happiest moment in a person's life, where loved ones gathered, where blessings were exchanged with tears and smiles. I was wrong. Very, very wrong. Because just one sentence, yes, just one sentence uttered the night before the wedding, destroyed everything my family had worked so hard to build. Not because someone opposed the marriage, not because the secret of the affair was exposed, but because the truth that had been buried for decades was finally revealed. At the cruelest moment. And the one who exposed it was none other than me. Not because I wanted to ruin my brother's happiness, not because I was jealous or petty. I just wanted to know who I was, where I came from, and why for all these years, the whole family had lived as if I didn't deserve to know the truth. Welcome to Judgy Tales, where family secrets are dug up, where the truth is no longer buried under the veneer of family, where you're allowed to judge what people try to keep hidden. In today's video, you'll hear a true, emotional story where a single sentence shattered a wedding, relationships were irreparably damaged, and a young woman finally found her true identity, but at a price no one expected. This isn't just a story about revenge or betrayal. It's a journey of truth, through the layers of masks created by her own family, to reach the wounded heart of a forgotten person in her own home. So what really happened the night before the wedding? Why was a single sentence enough to throw an entire family into chaos? And is the truth really worth it all? Stay tuned until the end because you'll want to hear every detail, every lie, every sideways glance, and finally the irreversible fallout. Ready to judge? Judgy Tales begins now. My name is Emily, I'm 27 years old, and I grew up in a family that, from the outside, everyone thought was enviably perfect. My parents were both successful, educated, lived in a beautiful house in a quiet suburb, and most importantly had 2 children. My older brother, Daniel, and me. Daniel was 3 years older than me, the ideal son any family could wish for. He was always at the top of his class, went to a prestigious university, then worked in investment banking where he not only rose through the ranks but also met Sophia, the girl who would become his wife, or at least, everyone thought so. Sophia was the type of person everyone loved. Beautiful, calm, naturally charming, and always knew how to behave tactfully in any situation. They met in their senior year of college, and from the first time I met her, I knew Sophia would be the golden daughter-in-law in my family's eyes. And I was right. My parents loved Sophia like their own daughter, and sometimes I felt like I was on the outside in my own house. Although Sophia and I never had any conflicts, there was something between us that was never really close, like we both knew there was an invisible wall but neither of us admitted it. I worked in graphic design, which didn't really impress anyone in my family. They didn't object, but they never asked much either. All the attention, the pride, the compliments, all went to Daniel, especially my mother. She made no secret of the fact that my brother was the pride of her life. I had long since gotten used to it, but as his wedding was being planned, the feeling of being left behind became more obvious than ever. My parents seemed to be living in a wedding fever. Every dinner was a meeting about invitations, flower colors, guest lists, and venues. I seemed to be a mere shadow in that house full of light and laughter. No one asked my opinion, no one cared how I felt. But I didn't complain. I smiled, put on my pastel bridesmaid dress, practiced smiling in front of the mirror, and played the role of the groom's sister perfectly. What no one knew was that, deep inside me, a rift was growing deeper and deeper. That rift was rooted in unanswered questions. Why was I different from everyone else in the family? Why did I have no clear memories of my childhood while Daniel had piles of photos, videos, and stories that were told over and over again? Why was it that every time I asked about my childhood, my mother looked confused and quickly changed the subject? I used to think it was just paranoia, but my instincts were never wrong. And the only person in my family who looked at me differently was my Aunt Rebecca, my mother's younger sister. She always looked at me with a half-loving, half-hesitant gaze, as if she was carrying something too much to bear. Every time I was alone with her, I felt like she wanted to say something but then stopped. Once when I jokingly asked, "Do you think I'm adopted?" she froze for a split second and then burst out laughing, but it was an unnatural laugh. From that moment on, I began to piece together the broken pieces of my past. And it all led to one thing. I was not the person I thought I was. The strange thing was, I still loved my family, in a conflicted way. I didn't want to hurt them, but I couldn't continue living in a prearranged drama. As my brother's wedding day approached, everyone was busy, stressed, but excited. Daniel was radiant as if he was about to enter the most beautiful chapter of his life. Sophia was perfect in every step, every gesture. I, as usual, was quiet. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. I didn't want to ruin the wedding. I just wanted to find out the truth. I needed to know who I really was. And one night before the wedding, a moment I thought was just a normal conversation, I said one sentence that brought everything crashing down. One single sentence, but enough to destroy everything. And it started from the very foundation of my family that I once thought was unshakable. That evening, just one day before Daniel and Sophia's wedding, we had a small pre-wedding party at a close family friend's restaurant. The space was elegant, the lights were soft yellow, the wine was poured evenly, everyone was dressed nicely, and the atmosphere of happiness seemed to spread in every glance, every clink of glasses. I sat at a corner table next to Aunt Rebecca, the only person in the room who made me feel not completely invisible. Both Daniel and Sophia were radiant, like the two main characters in a romantic movie, ready to close the chapter on their bachelorhood and move on to a life full of promises. My mother walked back and forth toasting everyone, her eyes sparkling with pride as if this was the greatest achievement of her life. I don't know what made me stand up, pour another glass of wine, and walk to the center of the room, amidst the loud laughter and repetitive stories of a fancy party. Maybe it was the voice in my head whispering, "If you don't tell me now, you never will." I didn't mean to cause a scene, but part of me wanted the truth to come out, even if it meant ruining everything. I raised my glass, smiled, and said I wanted to share a few words. Everyone turned to look at me, some surprised, some applauding, because I had always been the quiet one, hiding in the corners. I started with a toast to Daniel and Sophia, a few childhood memories with my brother, a few light jokes that made everyone giggle. The atmosphere was light until I paused, took a deep breath, and said, "I just have one question, and I hope after today, everyone will be honest, especially you." The atmosphere was quiet. I looked straight at my mother, still holding my glass, and continued, "Mom, am I your real son?" In that moment, the room held its breath. The soft music in the background faded away. No one understood what was going on, and all eyes were on my mother, who was now standing frozen in the middle of the aisle, her face pale, her lips moving slightly as if she couldn't believe her ears. Daniel frowned, stepped forward, and asked, "What are you talking about, Emily?" I turned to my brother, strangely calm. "Have you ever noticed? I'm not like anyone else in this family. I don't have the childhood memories that everyone tells me about. Mom never hugged me like she hugged you. Have you ever wondered why?" My mother trembled, wanting to say something, but she couldn't. Aunt Rebecca, still sitting at the table, put her hand to her forehead, as if what she had feared most had finally happened. Sophia stood next to Daniel, looking at me as if trying to analyze whether this was a bad joke or something more serious. I didn't wait any longer. I continued that I had searched the hospital records myself, had discovered signs that I was adopted at birth, that my birth date on the papers was the date an unknown baby girl was placed in foster care. Everything I had kept inside for years now came pouring out like a dam. Finally, my mother burst into tears, and between broken sobs she said, "Yes, you are not my biological child. But I love you. I just don't know how to say it. I'm afraid I will lose you." I stood there stunned. Not because of the truth, but because of the belated admission. I knew I was prepared, but hearing her say it from her own mouth, I still felt like someone had just taken away the rest of my heart. Daniel was struck by lightning. He turned to his mother, then looked at me. "Why? Such a big thing, no one said anything? You are my sister from childhood to adulthood. What does this mean?" I didn't answer. People around them began to murmur, some quietly left the table, some sighed. The atmosphere was suddenly heavy, tense to the point of suffocation. Sophia squeezed Daniel's hand, but he pushed it away, walking straight out without a word. My mother collapsed into a chair, her shoulders shaking with sobs. My words, just one, had brought everything crashing down. Not just the wedding, but an entire family built on silence and fear. I didn't cry. I just felt empty. It was as if I had stepped out of a dream where I was never the main character, and now I was standing in reality, where I could finally be myself, even if it meant breaking everything that had ever existed. I left the party in silence. No apology, no regretful glances or holding back. No one ran after me. I walked all the way home, letting the cold night wind blow through my thin dress. My emotions were chaotic, no anger, no tears, just a deep void growing in my chest. A truth had just broken out after years of keeping it hidden. I was not my mother's biological child. I was just a secret. A choice. A burden. But when I opened the door to my apartment and stood in front of the mirror, looking into my own eyes, I knew I couldn't continue to live like it didn't matter. They had rejected me by keeping silent for so many years. They had kept me by their side not out of love but out of duty. And now, when I had exposed the truth to everyone, I knew they would never forgive me. So why should I continue to play the role of the good daughter, the understanding sister? I would not destroy them out of anger. I would respond with control, with a wisdom they never expected. I started planning the next morning. First, I had to find a way to approach those who directly affected the family's reputation and image, especially my mother, who cared more about the public's view than anything else. She was the director of a large charity fund, often interviewed in newspapers and appeared on television as a symbol of charity and exemplary family. That was the first weakness. I collected all the pictures, information, articles, clips related to her, from interviews, seminars, to inspirational speeches. Then I compared them with old letters I had accidentally read, where she admitted that she could not love me as her own child, or notes in her personal diary that I had accidentally flipped through. My mother wrote in great detail, and in it, there were passages like, "I can't forget that he's not my child. I feel like I'm acting every day." I took pictures of everything. Every line, every piece of paper. Every piece of data was a bullet. But I didn't intend to use it all at once. I needed to scare them. Before they regretted it, they had to feel like they had lost control. I wrote an anonymous email with some initial evidence to a local reporter who had written about my mother. In the email, I simply wrote, "That model family has a secret, and their adopted son has kept it quiet for too long. If you want to know more, write back." Within 3 hours, the reporter replied. I wasn't in a hurry. I asked for a private meeting in a public but discreet place. We arranged for a small cafe in the park. He came with a tape recorder and a computer. I brought copies of the documents. I didn't tell the whole story. I just said I was adopted, that my family had hidden it as part of their perfect image. After that meeting, I went back and began phase 2. I sent an anonymous letter to my mother's office, saying simply, "A secret kept long enough becomes the worst lie of all." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. She would know. The next morning, I got a message from Daniel. "Why did you do this? Mom is falling apart." I didn't reply. I logged into my old social media account that my mother used to share family photos. I commented on an old post with a family photo. "Have you ever thought about telling the truth? Or is it only when you're forced to?" Soon after that, Daniel called. I answered, "You're ruining everything." "But you can tell Mom privately, you don't need to." I interrupted him. "Have you ever thought about how I feel, Daniel? All those years living in that house, always being the extra one, different from everyone else, not being hugged, not being asked. And everyone just said, Emily is too sensitive. Emily needs to learn to adapt. I'm a person, not a stray dog you picked up." Daniel was silent. Finally, he said, "What do you want?" I took a deep breath. "I want everyone to listen. I want no one to forget." My final plan was to attend the wedding if it was still happening. I showed up at the church, dressed in black. Not the color of mourning, but the color of truth. My mother saw me from a distance and she was about to come forward, but I held up my hand to stop her. "Not now." I walked in and sat in the back row. When the priest was about to begin the ceremony, I stood up. No one stopped me. I walked up the aisle and handed the officiant an envelope. "Excuse me. Before the ceremony continues, I have something to share." The envelope contained a copy of a handwritten letter my mother had written, where she admitted the truth. The priest opened it, read a few lines, and then looked at my mother, clearly understanding what was going on. I turned back to the room. "Don't worry. I'm not here to stop the wedding. I just want no one in this room to continue living a lie. Especially the one who's going to be my brother's wife. You deserve to know everything about the family you're about to enter." Sophia stood up, her eyes confused, then angry. He turned to Daniel. "What do you know about this? Do you know anything?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know anything. I swear." I walked out of the church before there was any further reaction. But I knew that from that moment on, none of them could go back to the way they were before. They would have to face the truth. With each other. With themselves. I didn't know if the wedding would go ahead. But for me, the plan was done. I didn't need to break them up. They would fall apart on their own. All it took was a seed of doubt, and a timely revelation. And the saddest thing, the most bitter thing, I didn't do it out of hatred. I did it because I loved them for so long, while they only pretended to love me. When the plan was fully executed, no one, not even me, could have imagined that its consequences would be so far-reaching and lasting. That day, when I saw the look in Aunt Eleanor's eyes after she had accidentally revealed the secret that the family had kept for nearly 3 decades, I knew there was no turning back. I had opened a door that could not be closed, not only for myself but for my entire family. The truth about my biological father, who was not a man I had ever trusted, blew everything away like a storm. My mother, who had lived in silence for so many years, finally had to face my anger and hurt. She did not deny it, nor did she justify it. There were only tears and a belated apology. But I was no longer a child who needed to be held and comforted. I am an adult, and I have lived my whole life with a hidden identity, a missing piece that has always made me feel like I don't belong. When the hidden camera footage of that day's conversation was released, as planned, my family exploded. Distant relatives, longtime friends, even neighbors began whispering. Some defended me, saying I had a right to know the truth. Others condemned me for exposing my family to the public, embarrassing my loved ones. Aunt Eleanor, who had started it all, became the most talked about name. She left town in silence just days after the whole thing was exposed. Not a word of apology, not a look back. I heard she moved to the south, away from the public and the hatred she had created. But wherever she goes, I believe that regret will always be with her like a shadow, persistent and inescapable. My relationship with my mother has never been the same. We keep a polite distance, talk when necessary, but deep inside the wound is still there. She had her reasons, perhaps to protect me from a cruel truth. But that protection has turned into a form of betrayal. Her silence has become a scream in my heart every time I look in the mirror and ask myself, who am I? I also cannot forget the reaction of the man I used to call my father. He didn't say much, perhaps because he knew he had no right to speak. He only sent a short message, just one sentence. I hope you are satisfied. Yes, I was satisfied. But it wasn't joy. It was cold relief, having removed a mask that had been worn for so long. My friends, those who knew the story, were divided. Some admired me for facing up to it, for revealing my pain instead of hiding it. Others quietly walked away, unable to bear the feeling of being caught up in a chaotic family storm. I don't blame them. Not everyone can stand firm in the face of the naked truth. Since that day I moved, changed my phone number, changed jobs. I started writing, not to tell my story but to understand it. Each word I typed was a step closer to myself. I wasn't as angry as I had been, but I also wasn't forgiving. Forgiveness is a privilege, and I wasn't ready to give it to anyone. I wondered if I regretted it. The answer changed with each passing day. There were evenings when I sat quietly in the dark, listening to the clock ticking and thinking, I wish I hadn't done that. But then I remember the feeling when the secret is revealed, when the lies can no longer continue to grow. And I know I did the right thing, even if right does not mean easy. This story does not have a happy fairy tale ending. No hugs and tears and forgiveness. No tearful family reunions. Just the truth, raw, painful but necessary. And in that truth I found a part of myself that I thought was lost forever. Now looking back, I no longer see myself as a victim. I am a survivor. I have gone through betrayal, hurt, and still stand. This story is mine. No one can rewrite it or control it. Even if the people involved turn away, stay silent, or leave, I am still here with the truth and the resilience that has been forged by my own tears and pain. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe one day my mother will have the courage to open up, to tell me her side of the story. Maybe I will forgive, or maybe I will never. But I know from that moment on, I no longer live in the shadow of what was left unsaid. And if you ask me if I would do it all over again, I will answer, yes, and this time I will do better. Because I have learned that sometimes the truth does not set anyone free. But at least it makes us who we are. So we have just gone through a dramatic story, with emotional shocks and unforgettable twists. Each character, each event leaves a deep impression, making us stop and ask ourselves, if I were you, what would I do? Would I agree or disagree with their actions? This is not just a simple story, but also a mirror for us to look back at ourselves, evaluate our actions and choices in life. First, let me review the most controversial points in this story. What do you think about how the main character faced the first shock? Should they choose to endure in silence, or should they act immediately to protect themselves? Many people believe that patience and forgiveness are the noblest ways, but others believe that standing up and fighting is the right way. What about you? And then there is the story of the hurtful person. Are they just a product of circumstances or simply selfish people who do not think about others? Have you ever had someone hurt you unfairly? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments so everyone can learn. Now for the bigger, deeper moral and psychological questions. What do you think about revenge? Does it make the protagonist feel more just, or does it just add to the suffering? Is revenge always the way to go? Is forgiveness a true strength? Or is forgiveness in these situations a weakness that can easily lead to further wrongdoing? Do the family relationships in the story remind you of your own family? Have you ever experienced disagreements so deep that forgiveness is impossible? What signs do you think the story has that signal an impending disaster? If the protagonist had realized it sooner, would things have been different? What do you think about the role of loved ones outside the main conflict? Who should they side with or stay neutral? Is silence complicity? Put yourself in each of the roles of the story. If you were the main character, how would you deal with the pain and betrayal? Would you be willing to expose the truth even if it might cause more damage? Or would you choose to stay silent, harboring pain inside? If you were the one who caused the damage, would you admit your mistake? Would you apologize and start over? Or would you try to justify your actions? If you were a loved one, what would you do when you were caught in the middle? Would you keep your distance to avoid getting caught up in the fight, or would you choose a side regardless of right or wrong? And most importantly, what does this story teach us? About the importance of communication in relationships? On the need to be careful of seemingly small words and actions that can destroy a person's life? On the power of forgiveness and the power of resistance? Do you agree that every relationship needs trust and respect? Or do you think that in some cases, defense and self-protection are the most important things? And now I want to hear from you. Take a few seconds to think and answer the following questions in the comments. Who do you think is most to blame in this story? If it were you, how would you react when you were hurt like that? Have you ever experienced a similar situation in your life? How did you handle it? Do you think revenge is worth it? Or should you choose forgiveness? What do you think the main character's future will be like if they continue to hold grudges? Or if they choose to forgive and forget? What should family and friends in the story do to help and support better? What lessons have you learned for yourself after listening to this story? In addition, do you have any questions about the details in the story, or other thoughts you want to share? Don't hesitate to write below. At Judgy Tales, we believe that each story has many different perspectives, and each viewer has the right to judge based on their own experiences and values. We always want to create a community that is not only for entertainment but also for understanding, sympathizing, and sharing valuable lessons in life. Therefore, your participation in comments and debates will help Judgy Tales grow and spread more meaningful stories. And don't forget, if you love stories like this, please like, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Each of your interactions is the motivation for us to continue bringing real stories, real dramas, and the most profound lessons. Thank you for following and taking the time to reflect with us. We look forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much for taking the time to read today's dramatic and emotional story on Judgy Tales, where every story is real, every drama is real, and every judgment has its weight. Before I wrap up, I want to speak directly to you, the person who has been with us through every up and down of this story. If you found this story shocking, thought-provoking, or made you feel sympathetic or angry, please show it by clicking the like button below. It's more than just a click. It's your way of showing that you care, letting us know you're here and want to hear more stories like this. Liking is your way of saying, I want to hear more, I want to share, and I want to be a part of the Judgy Tales community. If this is your first time with Judgy Tales, or you've been following but haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll hit the subscribe button. Subscribe now. Not only will this keep you from missing out on exciting stories, it will also make you an official member of the Judgy Tales family. Subscribing keeps you up to date with the latest videos, real dramas, and shocking stories you can't find anywhere else. To get notified as soon as a new video is released, make sure to turn on the notification bell. YouTube sometimes doesn't send automatic notifications if you don't turn on the bell, so this is an important step to make sure you don't miss anything. Turn on notifications to tell us that you're serious and want to stay with Judgy Tales and not miss anything. Every time the notification bell rings, it's time for you to immerse yourself in a new dramatic story, relive intense emotions and participate in lively discussions with the drama-loving audience like you. Did you know? Likes, subscriptions and bells not only help the channel grow but also give us more resources to invest in content, make videos more polished in terms of narration, images and sound. Your interactions are the motivation for Judgy Tales to become more and more complete and bring more authentic and attractive stories. Judgy Tales is not just a YouTube channel, but also a community where we tell, listen and judge everyday stories full of drama, conflicts and valuable lessons. Do you want to be a part of this community? Do you want to be listened to, share your opinions and create deep discussions? If the answer is yes, then liking, subscribing and turning on notifications is the first step to joining the Judgy Tales family. Also, don't forget to share this video with your friends and family, those who also love shocking stories, true dramas or simply need some real emotions in life. Sharing is also a way for you to help Judgy Tales spread more widely so that more people can hear the humane and dramatic stories that we bring. Another important thing is to not hesitate to comment below the video. We look forward to receiving your opinions, emotions and questions. Comments help us understand what you are thinking, how you feel, and also create lively conversations among members of the community. Each comment is a valuable piece, making up the vitality and diversity of Judgy Tales. Remember, like to show you care. Subscribe to become an official member. Turn on notifications so you don't miss new videos. You are the reason we continue to tell these stories, making each video more vivid and meaningful. Thank you for watching, listening, and accompanying Judgy Tales. We promise to continue to bring you stories full of drama, emotion, and profound lessons. See you in the next video.